Hi, and welcome to today's live reading from Designing Love, Book 3 in the Calderone Family Romance Series by Victoria Grant, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Caroline Winters was a pragmatist. She believed Murphy's Law would take absolute delight in wreaking havoc and triplicate at weddings as it did in everyday life. She prayed she'd survive the next few minutes of her best friend's wedding without triggering a major catastrophe. Any catastrophe, like her long black hair tumbling out of its precariously balanced updo, taking the windswept tassel style to a whole new level before she reached the altar. Or her stiletto heel snagging the hem of her daffodil yellow maid of honor gown, yanking the dress further off her shoulder with each step. Or dropping her bouquet, tumbling over it, and landing awkwardly on a highly amused guest's lap. She kept a watchful eye on the bridesmaids' procession ahead of her, knowing she was next. She discreetly tugged the straps higher onto her shoulders, tightened the grip on her bouquet, then began her walk down the aisle. Okay, Caro, time to smile. You're the maid of honor, so freaking beam. Live for the moment and feel the joy of your best friend, because you know this is the closest you'll ever get to the altar. Caroline arrived at the front of Toronto's largest church, Calamity Free, and sent a quick thank you to the wedding gods. She took her place next to the three bridesmaids and gazed around the magnificent 200-year-old neo-Gothic church. The May sunshine poured through the intricate stained glass windows, giving the sanctuary a warm, sublime glow. The pews were packed with guests, all on their feet, excited to get their first glimpse of the bride. The powerful organ music, the heady scent of thousands of fresh roses, lilies, and orchids, along with the guests' anticipation, combined to create the perfect atmosphere for a spring wedding. The music faded, and moments later, the double doors at the rear of the church parted. The dramatic notes of the arrival of the Queen of Sheba permeated the air, one of Caroline's favorite wedding pieces. She'd always loved and appreciated the powerful, emotional strains of classical music. It never failed to fill her with joy, inspire her creativity, and on a crazy, busy, or bad day, lift her spirits. Casey Dunlop, escorted by her uncle, floated towards them. She was beaming in her stunning, one-of-a-kind Valenciennes gown, the gown Caroline had chosen for her. They exchanged smiles. She's totally gorgeous. That gown is perfect. I knew it would be. Casey reached the altar and passed her bouquet to her best friend, who winked at her and leaned in. Go get him, Case, she whispered. The bride, with a powerful grin on her face, replied, watch me. The smiling, confident groom, Noel Calderone, very handsome in his Hugo Boss tux, came forward and reached for his bride's hand. He kissed it, whispered in her ear. They shared a smile, then stepped up to the minister. Wow, I know Noel is always calm, cool, and collected, but this is amazing. He's about to make a lifelong commitment to the love of his life, and he's totally relaxed. He looks like he just stepped off the cover of GQ, and so do all of his brothers. The ceremony proceeded with laughter and happy tears as the couple exchanged vows. Caroline carefully dabbed under her eye with her finger, annoyed she'd forgotten to put tissues in her gown pockets. They are so perfect together. I love this part of the ceremony, when they share their love for each other in front of their family and friends. Then she sighed and shifted slightly. It's the marriage part where the things tend to get tricky, so I'll pass. I'll be much happier as an architect than I would ever be as a wife. She allowed herself a leisurely glance at the best man, Noel's brother Charles. Damn, that is one good-looking man. More than good-looking. This guy is gorgeous. Could be Robert Redford's son. Tall, wheat-colored hair, chocolate brown eyes. He glanced in her direction and grinned, and a wickedly sexy smile, too. She dropped her gaze, a sudden thought alarming her. Oh shit, did he just read my thoughts? As the minister rambled on about love and honor and commitment, Caroline's thoughts were on Charles. I doubt he's that intuitive. So how come he looks at me like he knows my every thought? He stepped forward to give Noelle the ring. The brother showed a smile as Charles gave him an affectionate pat on the back. She felt a nudge on her side and spun her head to see Casey staring at her. "Caro, the ring," Casey hissed, panic in her voice. "Where is it?" "Oh, sorry." Caroline slipped Noelle's wedding band off of her thumb and passed it to the minister. She cringed, hearing a wave of subdued laughter from the congregation. She glanced over to see Charles chuckling. He winked at her when she caught his eye. She looked away, her heart pounding. Well, that was brilliant and mega embarrassing in front of 500 guests. Pay attention, Caro. She focused on the minister's words as her pulse resumed its normal beat. She risked one more glance at Charles, mortified to discover he was still looking directly at her. He arched his eyebrow and smiled. She scowled and abruptly turned away. The minister joyfully announced they were husband and wife, and the bride and the groom shared a kiss. The congregation cheered, and the wedding party started their walk up the aisle. Caroline stepped forward and was treated to another Redford Jr. smile, along with the arm he offered. They strolled past the applauding guests, and she felt taut arm muscles beneath the silky texture of his tuxedo sleeves. Thoughts of what other taut muscles were underneath that tuxedo heated her cheeks. And it didn't help that his hip slightly bumped hers with each step they took, or that the beguiling aroma of his cologne, a heady, intensely masculine scent, wafted around her. She had a sudden and thoroughly unexpected need to get closer to him, to touch more of him. She swallowed hard. "Get a grip, Caro. Not what you want, remember?" The photographer stopped them when they reached the church doors. She looked up from her camera and motioned to them to stand closer together. Caroline took a step towards Charles. "Come on, you two," the photographer waved her arm in the air. "Closer." Charles gave Caroline an amused smile, wrapped a firm hand around her waist, and effortlessly nudged her body along his. "Much better," he grinned, setting loose a million tiny bubbles that fizzed and frothed in her belly. The photographer was shouting out more instructions. "Smile." She snapped a dozen shots of them, Caroline doing her best to express a happy maid of honor glow for the camera, ignoring the gawking, love-struck teenager vibes traveling at light speed throughout her body. And what is going on in my stomach? It can't be indigestion. I haven't eaten anything today. When the photographer finally waved them away, she turned to Charles. "Time to congratulate the happy couple and get away from this guy who's doing crazy things to my gut." She sprang free from his embrace and ran to give Casey a rib-crushing hug. "Congratulations, bestie," she beamed. "And you too, Noelle." She gave him a peck on the cheek. Charles, she noticed, was chatting with a group of friends, his silky blonde hair shining in the sun's rays. The guests exited the church as the bridesmaids gathered on the side lawn. Caroline joined them, enjoying the unique shots the photographer was capturing of the bride and groom. Her cell phone vibrated in the pocket of her gown. It required significant willpower to ignore it. She fisted her hand, tapped forcefully against it until it stopped. "I'll bet it's news on the resort hotel bid. Did we get it? Did they love it? I need to know, but Casey will kill me if she catches me checking. I promised her I'd keep my cell in my purse all day. I'll have to check it later." As she plucked a few wilted rose petals from her bouquet, Charles casually strode toward her, his hand tucked in his trouser pockets. He stopped beside her, watching Casey and Noelle posing. "I'm glad you eventually found Noelle's wedding band." The minister was getting worried. The laughter in his voice reverberated through her senses. Caroline shrugged, a slight smile on her face, as another spray of energetic, unruly bubbles gurgled in her gut. "I guess it wouldn't be a wedding without a major hiccup." Great Nelm, the comical highlight of the wedding. She bit her lower lip and raised her hand to block out the sun. "Let's hope that's my only hiccup." Charles was still watching the photographers. "What or who were you thinking about?" His voice dropped to a deep, rich timbre. Suddenly, those frosty bubbles were shooting and squirting throughout her body. She was tingling all over. "Oh, God, what's happening to me? I don't remember. Her voice had a slight raspy quality to it, especially when she got nervous or excited. She cleared her throat, knowing it wouldn't help. I see, he nodded, rocking back and forth on the balls of his feet, a slight smirk on his lips. Caroline scowled. No, you don't see. How could you see unless you can read my mind? And I know you can't. Think you're so darn cute and clever. Well, you're not, Charles. You're just not. Her eyes lingered on the gray and black striped tie, nestled snugly against his white shirt at the base of his throat. Such a classic masculine look. Oh, God, yes, you are. We're needed for more photographs. The tone of his voice shifted again. It held a hint of humor as his eyebrow lifted above his grin. He stepped forward and offered his arm. Shall we? She touched his arm. Her heart raced. Chill, Caro, and focus, architect. Remember, award-winning buildings, not heartbreaking relationships.